think about when you see jewelry commercials for like engagement ring, the couple's hugging and they're in love, and fast forward to getting married and then having a kid and then passing the ring down. What that's telling me is that this is something to show that you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody. That's what they're trying to get me to think.
Like, what is different about this ring? Because I can Google, it's 2022. I can Google where to buy a diamond ring.
Right.
But when you can bring someone into a narrative and into a story, that is powerful. Hey, Aisha, welcome to Keep What You Earn. So happy to have you.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you on because on this show, we kind of beat into everybody's head all these things about money and finances and budgets and all the stuff that nobody really likes to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun to take a break from some of those money topics and talk about some other things that business owners tend to focus on. And that deals with a lot of marketing, branding. And I know that you're my resident expert in all things related to that. So I wanted you to share with our audience real quick a little bit about you and what you do with AAM.
Yeah. So I am a marketing consultant. I've been in the industry for about 5 years. It's been 2 years. I can't believe it. But 2 years ago, I was Forbes 30 under 30, or I guess 1.5. I'm 31 now. So I feel like it's cool when you're under 30 or when you're 30 when you say it, but when you're like over 30, I'm like, yeah, I was Forbes 30 under 30 and I'm not under 30 anymore. Anyway, I specialize in DTC brands and direct to consumer and helping bring them to market. Although I do work with brands who are already in the market. But that like startup hustle and bustle, I just love helping people like get their stuff together.
Yeah. And I know that's one of the areas that a lot of entrepreneurs can't wait to get started in because it tends to be, at least for the creatives, a little bit more of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So can you go into a little bit about, what you help folks do when they're getting started up, right? Like some advice you have for them and maybe even some of the common mistakes you see when folks are building their brand when they're brand new entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And then are we talking about product-based or just like anyone in general?
I'd say anyone in general, but if you have unique aspects to products, feel free to throw it in there.
Awesome. So anyone in general, I feel like when you have a business idea, you're so excited and like the visuals or like seeing something like IRL in real life is like what people care about most. Because really there was this, it wasn't a study. It was a study. And it was basically saying like, when people announce that they do something, the endorphins or the high that they get from announcing suffices that desire to do it. And so an announcement can kind of work as an achievement in your mind, even though it's not. And so I say that to say is like, when you have a business idea and people are like, I'm going to create an Instagram account and then here's my Instagram account. And then I'm going to post like, oh my God, my new business, go follow. And then like in your mind, whatever chemicals are reacting when you do that are basically saying like, okay, like you're done. Right. But like literally no. So that's one mistake that I see people make is like not a fully thought through launch. And it doesn't have to be, it could be messy action and there's beauty in that, but there's some just like strategic things that you should focus on. Like if you are starting a business, you want to know first of all, you want an LLC and a business EIN. That's important. When I first started my business, I did not have those. And I got a check for my business name and literally could not cash the check because I didn't have a business banking, but like, I didn't know better. So those things are important. And LLC is important because you want to protect yourself. But also like understanding who your demographic is and who your customer is. Like people understand that they have a problem that they're solving, which is amazing. But if you don't know how old your consumer is, what like motivates them, what problems are they facing right now in the immediate future, and then like long-term, if you don't understand that, then you don't understand how your business comes into play in those things. And if you don't understand how your business comes into play in those things, like you can just get lost with a really beautiful solution to something, but you're not really talking to your people. So I feel like that like back end work, that's like not necessarily the skill set. It's not necessarily the deliverable. It's not necessarily the logo or the website. It's really like, how are you speaking to your person to even get them in the door to be able to sell them whatever you're selling?
Yeah, I totally agree. And the funny thing is that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, even with branding and the visuals, right? They go after what they like,
Yep.
and they'll like something, but what does your customer actually like?
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot is really hard to like break through that and look through your customer's eyes at either a brand or
100%.
product?
Or not even knowing who your customer is at that point, and you just
Right.
do what you think who you think your customer is and what they like, right? Like we had a I did a customer deep dive, like a buyer persona with a company, and where I was helping them like really get granular on who their buyer was, like their main buyer, right? Their demo was from 18 to 55. Like we need to know who is like really buying and why are they buying, and why are the 55-year-olds buying, but they're buying for their kids. And then an 18-year-old, like the cheapest product on the website is $170. Like, where are they getting this money from? Like, right. You need to know those like motivators.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found out in that study was that, like in the deep dive that I did with them, was that their largest demographic is Gen Z, but their frequent customer is an older millennial. And so what does that mean? That means that you should be targeting the older millennial a lot harder, because that's where more income is going to come. Eventually, Gen Zs will grow into being able to afford things the way an older millennial can. But from an ROI perspective, you should be hitting that hard. And what we also found is that like the older millennial doesn't want something loud. Like it was a clothing brand. They don't want loud clothing. Like they want to be able to support, but in a more subtle way. So that kind of changes like the artwork that's even on their clothing. And you wouldn't understand any of those things unless you were looking at the back end. And so you would think like, yeah, like I have a wide buyer persona, 18 to 55. Like they all just like are aligned in like every single thing. But like, no, the 55-year-olds were moms that wanted to buy matching sets. So what does that mean? Okay, Mother's Day rolls around. Like there should be like a mom and daughter or a mom and son matching set to like really focus in on the 55-year-olds that want to buy from the brand.
I love that. Yeah.
So
That's such a good point, that who is your buyer, and like actually paint the picture of like, why are they buying? What is prompting them to buy, and who are they buying it for, is a huge thing. Because, and what you just made me think of was identifying there's the core user and then there's the core customer.
Yeah.
And those can be different things.
Yeah. And the best way I like to put it for people is like, picture us all in a pool. Like your core customer just experiences the ripples of like the waves more intensely than your core user, or even people that are not like the 55-year-old in this instance, right? They're not in the middle, or they're not feeling the waves intensely, but they do feel them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what would you say are ways that someone who's really trying to build their brand, like let's say, for example, release a product, right? Because that's a very common venture right now for a lot of entrepreneurs online, as people are moving from service to product or launching their first product. What pieces of advice do you have around really investing in a good brand for that product? Because I know it's not cheap, and it's definitely not easy to do once you've made mistakes. It's not easy to fix.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you could shed light on for the folks listening?
I think that it's kind of looking internally first to see like, is a product-based business something that I want, or do I feel burnt out from my service-based business? And I think that product-based is going to relieve me of that burnout. That's not always the case. And I feel like I'm noticing a trend of saying like, I want to work in the product industry because service-based is just so much and yada, yada, yada. And while that is true, I feel like that's a nice point in time to kind of think like, wouldn't it be cool if like, what can I change in my service-based industry that would make me enjoy this more, that isn't just pushing me to do a product because I feel like I can make more money quicker doing it? Is that your automations? Like, what can you automate? What can you systemize? What can you delegate? Like, how can you revamp how you're servicing people so that it's more enjoyable and you can scale a lot more quickly than jumping into product? Because I mean, product is amazing, and for all of those reasons you can scale a product and everything. But what people don't tell you is like supply chain, manufacturing, shipping. Like having a product-based business costs so much upfront before you ever see a dime in. And then even then, if you do like get into a store, there's like a 120-day net, meaning like you're not going to get paid for what you give them for 120 days. Like you need to have runway to be able to sustain you for that long. And so I think that I know that some of the advice that I would give is around that. It's around, why am I starting this based off my service-based business? And is this an opportunity for me to get more streamlined in my service-based business and then have more cash to front a product? So that's the advice that I would give around that.
And then you also made me think of something else, which is there an in-between where you could be an affiliate for a product, or you could white label something else, or really kind of not cut corners, but take a few shortcuts other than starting from scratch and doing all the manufacturing, co-packing, branding, and everything yourself.
Totally. Yeah. And I think what service-based businesses don't realize often, and this is just by virtue of being like in a different category of business versus product-based, a lot of service-based businesses have products already that they can sell, like you mentioned. You can be a service-based business and you can sell your SOPs to people. Like you can sell your CRM system and how you built it out to people. Like that can be something that you can license and sell, and that's a digital product and people would buy it. I mean, how much money is being transferred in licensing is like insane to me. I just recently was exposed to that world and I'm like, wow, you made how much on a one-time document? That's crazy. So there are so many areas of opportunity for product and service-based business that is an extension of your business that you've already created and can make money off of, as opposed to trying to find an extension of your business, like a notebook that you can give to your clients and then sell, right? Like there's areas of opportunity. You just kind of have to look inside to find them sometimes.
Absolutely. And as you put it, with licensing, or other types of even recurring revenue, or I guess it's a little bit of an easier way to make money. I know that we think products are a faster way to, well, I guess once they're launched, right? Because there's a really big ramp up, but once they're live, yes, you can realize revenue a little bit faster, potentially, depending on what your revenue cycle is as a service business. But here's the thing though, all the effort put into that, all the effort to build it without knowing if it will work or not, and having to constantly sell it or constantly promote it and dump money into ads, which is how a lot of products lately have been selling, versus, as you put it, with the licensing, right? Versus I sell my document.
Yeah.
Right. It's a little bit of an easier, if you want to put it, or simpler way to sell.
Yeah. You spend money or time creating it once and continue to sell it like an NFT. But yeah.
Exactly. So, what would you say are some of the top pieces of marketing advice you give as a consultant, right? Like some of the top, ways that you're helping your clients overcome, strategic blocks or anything like that you're working on with your clients?
Right now, what's really big, and people just don't do this because you don't think to, and it sticks with the theme of what we were talking about before. Get your Google Analytics set up. Like, look at your analytics on social. Like, what is performing really well and why? Like, why did this perform so well? Those things, it's free, and it's not like you're spending money on an ad to figure it out. If you look at your Google Analytics and it tells you that people are coming from your email list more than they're coming from social media, well, that means that you need to go all out on that email list and sell there. But you wouldn't, there's just things you just wouldn't know without getting it set up. I'm doing another buyer persona deep dive with another company this week. And I was like, hey, can you send me over this, and that? And they didn't have their Google Analytics set up, and they do really well as a company, like in the 7 figures. And they're like, we don't know. I'm like, we could be making so much more money here, you guys. Like, we need to know these things. And it's just things that you don't think about. One other thing that I would say from an advice perspective, if you're already there, your Google Analytics are set up and you're really clear on your buyer persona, what I, from a creative, see people in marketing strategies not understand how to create a campaign or visuals around your product in a way that sells it. And so people are just like, I need to take pretty pictures of my product. And I'm like, Yes, but also no. Like we need to know, what problem does your product solve? And then we need to create a campaign that shows that problem being solved in the visuals to tell a story that this product solves this problem. It could still be very aesthetically pleasing, but it's just a missed opportunity. Like think about when you see jewelry commercials for like engagement ring, the couple's hugging and they're in love and she's looking at her ring and she's so happy, and they're fast forward to getting married and then having a kid and then passing the ring down. Like what that's telling me is that this is one, an heirloom piece, two, it's like something to show that you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody. And that's what they're trying to get me to think, as opposed to just a ring that's shot really pretty or hanging out on a model's arm.
Yeah. Or like just the lonely ring and like a backdrop sitting there. That's not telling a story. It's like, oh, that's pretty, but how is it different also? Like what is different about this ring? Because I can Google, it's 2022. I can Google where to buy a diamond ring.
Right.
But when you can bring someone into a narrative and into a story, that is powerful.
Yeah.
For sure. So, are there any other key themes that are coming up around building a brand, building a marketing presence? I mean, I love that you brought up understanding why you're performing a certain way that you are, but also what other trends are you seeing among your clients?
Some trends that I'm seeing is just like very authentic, like way of marketing content. I think before it was very curated, the same filter through everything. Now people just want to see like real, like no filter and just you picking up your phone and shooting the content. It could be your face, it could be the product, it could be someone moving in the product or holding it. No one is caring as much about the aesthetic, but that's like in social. But I do think people care about the aesthetic and the experience when they are handling your product. So it's kind of like a weird dichotomy in that like they don't care anymore, but then when they do have it in hand, they do want to feel like there's an experience, a curated experience around it. So that is a trend that I'm seeing that's kind of like through and through in almost every industry. And just that content is king, and like video content is king, and other people talking about your stuff in video is going to go a really long way, as opposed to like a graphic or a quote tile or like anything like that. Another thing that I'm seeing is reviews, video reviews. This is in service space, but I'm in this mastermind and this couple launched, they had like a $250,000 launch and sold most of their stuff based off of reviews.
Wow.
And the reviews, there was a contest within the last mastermind that said the best review gets this like really cool, exciting trip to wherever. So people were like really doing their best to give a really good review, but they use those reviews to sell people. And I'm like, that's what people care about. They want to see someone else's transformation or how someone else is using the product and how someone else likes it. So if you can step your review game up, give an incentive to your people and make it very easy to do, that can sell for you.
Totally. And I mean, with products too, I can attest to that. Like the first place I go is I scroll down and go to the reviews and find out, like, I just bought a new laptop. And of course, forget the specs because I don't understand half of the stuff. My husband does, and I just trust him. But I go down to the bottom and I'm like, what do people actually like about this? What is the user experience like? And that's so true, especially and there are certain types of buyers out there that really highly value that.
And you need to know what does your buyer want to see in a review? Because when I go to reviews, there's certain things that I'll look for in that review. If I'm going to a clothing store online, I want to see photos of a girl that looks like me wearing it. But if I'm going to buy a laptop, I just kind of want to see like if there's anyone that wants to use it the way I want to use it. Right? Like I'm not looking for photos. If it's like a food that I'm trying, I go to the reviews to see like what are people using in the recipes on Whole Foods on Amazon for this like random thing. So you want to know what is going to make someone make a decision. What are they looking for in the reviews? What is your customer looking for in the reviews? And then figure out how you can reverse engineer and create your current customer to create those types of reviews. So I got an email that said, here's a $5 gift card if you give us a review, $10 gift card if you do a video. And I love Starbucks. So I was like, I don't really want to do a review for $10, but I'll do a regular review for $5. And I put in a review and instantaneously I got a gift card in my email for Starbucks to just write a review.
Amazing.
Like, there are so many things that you can do to really capitalize on the reviews, but people sleep on that free marketing. Instead, they'll put thousands of dollars in ads when you can just pay thousands of dollars to your actual customers to give an honest review about your stuff and then promote that.
And not to mention, that's such a cool thing to do that then they go tell a story. Then they're like, what you just did, right? Then they go and say, hey, Aisha gave me a $10 gift card just for writing a review. You should go. You should go get yours too. Like you should go. She's giving away coffee. You should go check this out.
Right.
So not only that, it does help the brand itself because you're doing something like that and that people are attracted to that.
The contest that I told you about, that my people that are in a mastermind that I'm in that had a $250,000 launch and sold like 50,000 in the emails when cart closed based off of an email that just had hours and hours and hours of video reviews. And in that, like, the call to action is, tell us about your transformation in this course and speak to how that's impacted your business positively. Like, there's a really clear prompt, but the people watching don't know that, but they're looking for that. If I'm going to invest a lot of money in a course, I want to know what someone's transformation is.
Yeah. Where did they come from? Where did they go? And how important do you feel the prompts are in terms of getting those right?
Largely important. The higher the threshold of what you're giving them, the prompts are helpful, because if you're just saying, I have a contest for whoever gives the best review, I'm like, so what's
the best? How do you define what's good?
Exactly.
What are the scorecard metrics here that I'm trying to go for? What am I being graded on?
Exactly. And the less people have to think, the better results you'll get. And that's in anything, especially social media, but that's not what we're talking about. But for a prompt, I would give something really clear and say, that's what we're grading on. Like, we want to see the transformation and how much this has impacted you. And I'm like, boom, I remember I was on the floor crying and I didn't know what to do. And then I got this course and now they'll do whatever for this like free trip and spending money or whatever.
Yeah. And it costs you a couple $1,000s maybe in prize money if you're working at that scale, right? I think
and they bake that in. Yeah. They bake that into their course. So it's just one person's payment is the prize.
Right. And then if they sell one person, they've made the money back. And then more than that, they're just making money, but everybody's happy.
Yep.
So it's really, everybody wins in that situation.
Yeah.
And, but you just brought up a really good point, which is make it as easy as possible for people to take action. And if there's nothing else you learn in business, anchor everything you do back to that, right? Because I think if you create barriers to sell, then people will not buy. Like, even if they're motivated to buy, if you make it too hard for them, too many hoops to jump through, too many steps in the sales process from where they're attracted to your product or service to the time they get to actually talk to you or buy the thing, people can drop off, right? So it's really important to keep it simple.
Yeah, totally.
So, tell us a bit more about what AAM does and sort of the experience that you cultivate for your clients, because I know we've hit on a lot of different areas of marketing that people think of marketing. They think of like brand, font, color, stuff, but it's so much more than that, which I love that you dove into. What can AAM help with, and what are the different dimensions that you guys consult on?
Yeah, so we're a consulting firm, and there's like two facets. The facet one is helping other surface-based businesses in a consulting format and how to scale and run an agency, any agency. But my background, I had an agency for about 4 years and like 15 employees, 15 interns. Like, we were, running a good show. But I moved away to do more consulting work where it's less of an execution. So I will coach one-on-one a select few people a year to help them really scale their agency in a way that makes sense, financially, time-wise, all of that. And then the second facet is for direct to consumer brands. I help bring them to market. So from idea to figuring out what is it that I want to do when it's launched and how does that work? I love that sweet spot of bringing brands to market.
Love it. So how can folks get in touch with you to learn more about what you do or just to follow along with your journey in building that business?
Totally. So my business account is AAM Firm, FIRM. And then my personal is AISHA, Aisha. So you can follow me there, send me a DM, links in my bio that will take you anywhere you need. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Aisha, for hopping on the show today and for sharing all your knowledge with us. We really appreciate it.
Of course. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. See you next time.